Howdy, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Brand New Gig. To kick off the show, I've got to admit that I need to stop scheduling during Josh Pate's live show, so we're going to adjust that as weeks continue to come up.
Please,
But
Josh Pate needs to stop scheduling during your show. Come on,
you know
are
what?
you
Let's
kidding me?
reframe our mindset.
Yeah,
There we go.
please.
I'm
Come
reframe
on.
that.
We're in a growth mindset. This is a growth season for all of us.
Yes, for all of
We're
us.
manifesting our destinies. So come on, Avery.
There we go. I'm framing that. I'm going to look at that in the mirror every morning. We're going to run with that. But if you're joining us for the first time, we are so glad to have you on this eve of SEC football. And if you are returning, well, an immense thank you to you. As you will notice, I have two guests this time, so double the fun and double the excitement. Who knows what's to come? Let me introduce these two guys. So first off, we have John. He's joining to bring us a little bit of parody, and he's also going to talk to us about Georgia Bama, which we are so excited for as it falls in the evening slate right after this afternoon game that we have with Brandie, who has been dealt a little bit of a heavier hand. They had to deal with some SEC officiating on top of the retirement of Bruce Pearl. So if you want to know how you can support our two fellow guests,
it's been a rough week.
we all know what it's like to be down in the dumps. So leave a like and a subscribe down below, and that will equal one prayer for both of our guests amidst a very hectic week ahead. Before we jump into our first segment, how are you guys doing?
Could not be better. Life is great, which is generally the case for a Georgia football fan on the week that you play Alabama. So just enjoy. We're just going to enjoy it. Things are going good. Things are going well. We'll see how we feel on Sunday, but things are good here.
Yeah, things are as good as they can be over here. I'm still recovering from Monday's basketball news, but you know, I'm fully behind our new head basketball coach, and you know, I'm over the Oklahoma game too from last weekend. So new horizons, trying to breathe some fresh air into this week, and really excited for Saturday's slate of games. I think it's the best college football weekend so far that we've had this season.
Especially, I've learned to just roll with the punches because they don't stop really ever. So there's not much you can do except keep on trucking along. I'm not going to keep you along for this first segment. I do my little therapy session called Off the Ledge. And neither of y'all are probably, I'm sure you would love if our fans jumped off the ledge a little bit. We're not holding our breath. I consulted the people, and they have a lot of concerns, as Aggies always do. It's going to take a lot for us to be satisfied. But the one thing that is intangible is something we all know and love, which is battered Aggie syndrome. And I'm just going to knock this off of our plate first. How many people? I had 10 people, 10 just out of our replies that are ready to jump off the ledge despite being 3-0. So my little message to them is, yes, we are now dealing with national media, very different than Notre Dame. Because with Notre Dame, everyone was expecting us to lose. There's no target on our back. We just come in, you got nothing to lose. And now you have a lot more to lose. This is where in years past we've kind of fallen. This is an early roller coaster for us. Usually it comes October, November. This is where we see things fall apart. Last year you saw LSU, bye week, South Carolina. Obviously we don't want a repeat of that, but everyone is expecting a repeat of that. But what I have to say to that is, if you are going to be bought into Mike Elko, if you want to hop on the train and you don't want to miss it, leave the station, then you got to believe that we can win this game, and you got to believe that we can turn the page. If you want to be great and not just good, then you can't look at the past. You got to live in the present. And with all that being said, gig 'em, drink the Kool-Aid. That's all I can recommend. That is my prescription for you, is drink as much Kool-Aid as you can before Saturday at 2:30. So with all that being said,
Josh Pate wishes he could do what you just did. So let's go.
We're getting fired up because I can't live in an alternate universe where I live in fear because I've done that for far too long. So if come Saturday at 6 o'clock something happens that I don't like, I'm not gonna manifest it out loud, but we address it then. Until then, we we live in optimism. I'm too young to live in fear. But rolling with that, we are going to first look at last year's game, which was a very interesting one. 4 overtimes. I'm sure anyone who watches college football remembers that one. So my first question is, do you see that storyline repeating itself, or do you see this year's game looking totally different?
I honestly think it's going to be a really close game again. I don't know if we're going to see 4 overtimes and the craziness of obviously it's the first big win that Auburn football has had in a couple of years. It's been pretty down so far. So I do think it's going to be a close game. And since Texas A&M joined the SEC and we started playing every year, I feel like these games between Auburn and Texas A&M have always, for the most part, been really close too, and also super fun. There was a span when you guys first joined the conference where Auburn would always win on the road, and then Texas A&M would always win on the road. Kind of evened out a little bit the last couple of years. So I feel like both of these teams, we always play each other really tight. So I kind of am expecting that again.
Yeah, the road is definitely a little bit cursed. I know 2013, especially, John, you had the same problem with that Georgia team where Jordan-Hare is not a place that you want to be. Or they were home. Actually, we were home that year, and that was the infamous horse collar. So
Yeah, but that
not
was
a great year
Auburn.
for either of us.
That was Auburn Jesus. That was Auburn Jesus. I mean, come on.
We sold our soul for that.
Gus Malzahn sold his soul. I don't know about the entire Auburn fan base, but one person did, and that may have been affected Auburn since then. Yeah, that Auburn year, we can talk about that some other time. I'll say Auburn and Texas A&M. I love Georgia. So Texas A&M is such a foreign concept to Georgia fans because we played Texas A&M exactly one time in the 15 years or whatever it is that you've been in the SEC, and that was in Athens in 2019. And so some of these games, watching Texas A&M and watching 4 overtimes and watching Texas A&M and LSU in 7 overtimes, all this craziness that tends to follow Texas A&M. And then having Auburn, who we are very familiar with, the Deep South's oldest rivalry. We've been playing that thing for almost 150 years. It's such an interesting game to look back on because I do think, to Brandie's point, I mean, Auburn was so desperate for a win. It was in Jordan-Hare. It was, Texas A&M had a really good season going, 8-2 coming into that game, ranked in the top 10, maybe top 15. But yeah, that game is what, to me, looking back as someone who's not a fan of either team, that's what you love about college football. You love the storylines, and you hate, even if your team is playing and your team wins, you hate that somebody has to lose a game like that. But
Right.
That game was one of my favorite games of last year. I expect a close game this year. I do not expect that. I don't think you have those storylines. You do have, that you have the Auburn situation, of last week. You got Texas A&M, with everything literally in front of them, the highest aspirations still attainable. But I think this is going to be a good game. This is going to be a very good game, and I'm really interested to see. If Auburn, it's that whole coach cliche. Can you not make one loss turn into 2 losses, right? It's don't let Oklahoma beat you twice. And that's, I think, is going to be an interesting storyline this week.
Well, everyone's coming into this game expecting it to be a blowout either way. I think both teams have a lot to lose just in terms of playoff contention and momentum as a whole. Mm-hmm. So going off of that, do you expect it to be high-scoring offensive shootout or low-scoring defensive tested out battle?
I honestly think it's going to be a lower scoring game, defensive type of battle. Auburn the past couple of years has struggled moving the ball, and our offense has gotten better this year, but I think the defense is going to be, to keep this game close like how I think it is, I think it's going to be more of a defensive game. Can Auburn contain Marcel Reed? And the type of offense that Auburn runs, this RPO system, would just maybe not conducive for the quarterback still that we have right now, at least after what kind of saw last week. So I think it's going to be, I don't know what the over-under on this game is, but I think it's going to be not as low scoring as Oklahoma-Auburn was this past week, but I still think it's going to be more of a defensive type of game than it is offense.
Yeah, I was just looking. I'll pull it up while I'm talking here. I was just looking at the line on that because Texas A&M is only favored by 6.5. Yeah, the over/under is 52.5. So it's it's definitely not. Vegas at least is expecting this to be pretty balanced game. I think the challenge for Auburn, to Brandie's point, this week is going to be, what do you do with Jackson Arnold, right? I mean, Jackson Arnold he's a good quarterback. I mean, we saw it versus Baylor. We saw him last year, versus Alabama, basically just like will his team, a not good Oklahoma team, to win that game. And then you saw last week, some of the tendencies as to why, I know Oklahoma had terrible offensive line last year, but Oklahoma led the nation in sacks. And I think some of that you saw last week with Jackson Arnold, where those tendencies, it's like, hey, last year, Oklahoma's offensive line got so much of the blame for those sacks. And then, Jackson Arnold goes back to Oklahoma and they set a freaking, all-time record for number of sacks in a game. And so, and I think a lot of that, I said all that to say, I think a lot of that is not on Auburn's offensive line, to be honest. I think a lot of it is timing. I think a lot of it is, like what Brandie was saying, that RPO kind of offense does lend itself to some of those sacks if you can't make decisions quickly. And I go back to that poor Auburn journalist who leaked that video from practice in fall camp and got in trouble and deleted the tweet like immediately, but he'd already taken off, of Hugh Freeze throwing his visor and saying, make a decision. Like, he's like going off on Jackson Arnold about wanting him to make a decision quickly. And everybody was like, oh, Hugh Freeze. And it's like, no, like we saw it. We saw why he was throwing the visor in fall camp last week. And so on the Auburn side, I think this game really goes with how Jackson Arnold goes. I think if Jackson Arnold, if he can find rhythm, if he can get in time, if he can, make some good reads and some good decisions, I think this will be a really close game and a really good game. If he can't, I think Texas A&M does have, an opportunity to maybe run away with the game a little bit, not blow Auburn out, but like, get to one of those like 10, 13-point games where you just realize like, oh, you don't have enough on the other side. That being said, I mean, Cam Coleman, I mean, Auburn has these skill players that, like, it is a situation where, there you go, Lounge, give Cam Coleman the ball. It is a situation where Auburn has plenty of talent in skill position to overcome Jackson Arnold not being a great quarterback this year. It's just going to be a matter of, the brain of Hugh Freeze and that Auburn offensive coaching staff versus Mike Elko and his defensive mind, seeing what can happen.
Yeah, and even with Jackson Arnold being inaccurate, which is a problem that Marcel's facing as well. I mean, we've seen a lot of wide open balls be missed by he's overthrown KC, he's overthrown Craver. I mean, it's not like we're not in the same boat, but I think even with that, like, they're going to hit Cam Coleman. Like, we're not going to shut him down in the same way that Auburn's not going to completely shut down Craver or KC. Like, broken clock is right twice a day. Like, if he's consistently open, he's going to make big plays. There are going to be explosive plays on both sides of the ball, which is why I'm leaning towards this being a high-scoring game. Is on top of us having 40 points every game, which I thought Notre Dame was going to be a defensive game and it was high-scoring, so maybe that makes this game a defensive game. Who knows? It's college football. But I think there's a similar game plan in which we know Auburn wants to give Coleman the ball, and Auburn knows we want to give Craver the ball. So it's, in a sense, yes, they make big plays, but who is the standout guy outside of those two that are going to have to step up?
I think something that'll be really important for Auburn in this game is not going away from the run. Auburn did that against Oklahoma, and we saw both Damari and Jeremiah Cobb get really good runs off, and then most of the second half just didn't really run the ball all that much. And it was in a game where clearly Jackson Arnold was holding onto the ball for too long and had some overthrows, and that Oklahoma defensive line was really good. So I think for Auburn, it's going to be getting the running game going and sticking to that running game, kind of similar to what we did in the Baylor game. Jackson Arnold really did not throw the ball in the Baylor game. And I think that's going to be the key for Auburn, is sticking to that running game. On the defensive side of the ball, though, Auburn's secondary is not good. And that is a little concerning when one of your best players in the secondary, Jay Crawford, was out this past week and he's questionable this weekend. So if he's out, I'd be pretty concerned that if Marcel kind of can get in a stride and actually hit some guys, that could lead to some explosive plays. So that's a little bit of a concern there. I do think our pass rush is good, and we do that a lot. So on that side of the ball, just really concerned about giving up some potential explosive plays, because our secondary is very clearly our weakest defensive position group outside of linebackers. So I'm a little concerned about that.
Defense is probably our biggest concern, outside of just the non-negotiable part of it. I mean, it's been very lackluster all year. I mean, we lost 3 guys to the NFL, and then we just haven't seen as much production as we wanted. But our receivers have already made 20-plus yard explosive play, like more explosive plays than we had all of last year. So it's a very even matchup, and where our strengths are y'all's weaknesses and vice versa, I think, which is why it's so hard for me to compare teams and even begin to guess how this game is going to go.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of. I'm a nerd, so I'll give you a couple of advanced stats. Brandie, says, "Hey, we need to be able to run the ball." Texas A&M is giving up 6.6 yards per play in the run game, and 47.1% success rate versus the run, which is that's not good for people listening. You want that really below 30% in your run defense. And Auburn, on the other side is defensively, Auburn is 29.4%, success rate versus the run, 30.9% success rate versus the pass. Like, Auburn's defense has not been that bad. And so I think if you're looking for one kind of key, it is, Texas A&M has not been great. Their defense has not been great against the run. Auburn wants to run the football. That lines up, feels like it lines up pretty good for Auburn until you look, on the other side and you look at really, Auburn on third down has not been good. And Texas A&M defense on third down has been pretty good. So I think it's going to come down to, can Texas A&M stop the run and get Auburn off the field on third down, or can Auburn establish a run, convert some of those third downs, kind of not sit on the ball, but kind of hold the ball a little bit, not get into a little bit of a shootout. Texas A&M, because they like to throw the ball over there. So that's where I think this game is going to be decided.
And I see our quarterbacks having a lot of similarities. Obviously, I'm a little bit higher on Marcel because of personal bias, but
it's my favorite thing I've ever heard on a podcast. Obviously, I lied because of personal bias. I love this. Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
I love it.
Skirt my way around it. It is what it is. But I think that's a threat that both teams, like an underlying threat that both teams are facing. Jackson Arnold can scramble, and so can Marcel. And that's a third aspect of the offense that's harder to account for when you're comparing just to the tailback room and the receivers. I think where A&M might have a little bit of an edge is our tight end productivity, especially compared to last year. I mean, Nate Borkacher, who's a blocking tight end, caught the game-winning touchdown against Notre Dame. And those balls over the middle, I know, hurt Auburn a lot against Oklahoma. So that's where I expect to see a little bit of a breakout, is our tight end room, something that I think a lot of people aren't talking about. So that's kind of where I'm leaning if I had to expect something out of the ordinary.
Yeah, I think it's funny too that you guys are good at that, and that's an area of the field that we're not great at defending. And I think part of that is because the offense that the defense is facing in practice is not throwing over the middle very much. I tried to see if there was kind of a route tree like I could look at from the Oklahoma game, and honestly this whole season, but it feels like a lot, if not almost all, of Jackson Arnold's passes for Auburn has just basically been on the outside, which is really interesting because our defense is not very good at defending the middle part of the field. And part of me wonders why. Part of me wonders, like, oh, is it because the offense that they're facing in practice isn't very good at that? So that'll be interesting. Our tight end production has been, not very great this year. I think we maybe have had one touchdown from our tight end this year, but Auburn hasn't had a productive tight end in over a decade. So yeah, that definitely on our side of the ball is definitely not going to be. I think that'll be a non-factor for us. So I'll be interested to see kind of how we defend y'all's tight end.
John, how's it looking for you? Given the result of the game, for both teams, which side of the field? Oh my gosh, what am I trying to say? Which position group would you expect to be the star of the game for both teams, whoever wins?
Yeah, I mean, I think if Auburn wins, I think it's going to be the running backs. I think it's going to be, because Jeremiah Cobb and what's his name, Austin, ran the football. Like, I think Auburn, if Auburn wins, I think it's because they have 200 plus yards rushing, and they've controlled the clock a little bit, and they've been able to hit, and because they've had that run game, it's opened up a little bit of that play action and like those deep balls to the outside to those incredible wide receivers. I think that's going to be the key. If Auburn wins, I think that's who's going to be the MVP. If Texas A&M wins, I think it's going to be. I think you're right, Avery. I think it's going to be Marcel Reed and the tight ends, and maybe not even the tight ends, but just like maybe those intermediate routes, right? It's like, hey, like it took advantage of guys like DeMarcus Riddick and some of those younger guys that end up getting in that rotation for Auburn that aren't. To Brandie's point, I love Brandie's ball knowledge and analysis of like maybe the offense is good at this stuff, and so the defense is not good because they don't see a lot of it in practice. Because I think that's totally true, and I think you see that a lot with Auburn with that defending passes, intermediate passes across the middle. Because I think you have some linebackers, some young linebackers especially, that get rotated in there, and teams take advantage of a mismatch. And it's like, hey, you got a young guy, line up, put him in coverage, make him cover, and throw it over the middle. And so I think it will be the tight ends for Texas A&M. And honestly, I just think it'll be Marcel Reed. Like I try not to be like, oh, it'll be the quarterback, but like the truth is this Texas A&M offense and the Auburn offense they both have plenty of skill players to win this type of football game. It's going to come down to, can Auburn run the football and take some pressure off of Jackson Arnold? And can Marcel Reed just take advantage of some of the weaknesses in what I still consider as a pretty good Auburn defense, take advantage of some of the weaknesses there?
Yeah, and I think an underrated part we talk about offense, defense, I think something that Auburn struggled with too against Oklahoma, and part of it is just being at Oklahoma in a away game is always tougher, is special teams, which, I mean, we missed a field goal against Notre Dame, and then Notre Dame's special teams ended up kind of being the reason we won, if you want to call it, if the missed extra point, you want to call it the reason we won. But I think that's an element too that I am interested to see how that plays out. And I could see that being a deciding factor of, which team wants to make a game-changing play. And it's always very easy to say whoever wins the turnover battle is going to win the game. But I think making those opportunities, not just forcing third down, but forcing you to punt, miss punts, miss field goals. I think the element of being at Kyle Field is very helpful for us because I know Auburn dealt with a lot of penalties last weekend, and we're not very disciplined either. We had, I think, 13 penalties against Notre Dame. So it's a very big aspect for both of our teams that I think could shake things up a lot because it's going to be a battle on both ends of the ball. So that is a third element that could make or break how things go.
Yeah, on the special teams front, Auburn special teams have kind of just been all over the place. Auburn had against Baylor I think it was a kick return for a touchdown, which is like first time the Auburn's had that in a really long time. And then we have our starting kicker who has been dealing with chronic condition, Crohn's disease, and can't kick over. I think right now he's limited to 35 yards or something like that. And we have to bring our backup kicker in to kick field goals and stuff. So, and then obviously what happened in the Oklahoma game this past week with special teams too. So our special teams just have kind of been all over the place. So it'll be interesting to see if that plays a factor into this. I kind of think it probably will for Auburn. So our special teams weren't great against Oklahoma this past weekend, but they were against Baylor. So I don't know, that position group for Auburn is really unpredictable.
Listen, Mark Richt is raising money for Parkinson's and Crohn's disease. His granddaughter has Crohn's disease, and so I'm not making light of Crohn's disease. Trust me, like I know people who have it, like I sympathize, but that's one of the craziest things I've heard in a while of like, hey, like it feels, Brandie, I'm gonna say this respectfully. My wife is a lifelong Auburn fan. Her grandparents live on Lake Martin. They've had season tickets to Auburn for decades. That feels like one of the more Auburn things to have happened. Not, again, it's just like around this program the last few years, it's like, oh yeah, of course, that's what it was. So,
right. I mean, we missed the kick against Oklahoma with our backup kicker, but the kick we did make and the 2 extra points were both made by our starting kicker, who is Alex McPherson. And if you aren't familiar, I think they might have ran a segment on game day and during the game too about the struggle that's been going on with him. He literally has to go out there and kick with like a colostomy bag attached to him. Yeah. And his older brother is the kicker for the Bengals, Evan McPherson. And so Auburn usually has been known to have like very elite kickers coming through our program, both the Carlson brothers. And even before then, we had Cody Parkey. So we're kind of known to have really good kickers. So it's a really strange period of time right now at Auburn to have a kicker who was supposed to be really good, but he isn't because of something that's totally unrelated to football. Yeah. So that's been like very interesting, but also in the same breath, like Rayshawn Pleasant, who's been our kick returner and punt returner, has been really good for Auburn this year. He's a transfer, I think maybe from an HBCU school, or a lower level school, a mid-major of some sort. And we haven't had a guy that can return kicks or return punts back there in a really long time. I'm sure a lot of people remember who we used to have back there the past like couple of years, and Coy Moore fumbled against LSU during all of that. But anyways, like that's always been a struggle for Auburn. So it's kind of two sides of the coin there. It's been really interesting to see. So I have a feeling for Auburn, it's special teams are going to end up playing a part in this game, whether it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. Maybe both for Auburn. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch out for in that game.
Teams. I mean, we've kind of broken down every aspect of the game, and just what the game means as a whole, I think is very big for both of these teams. I mean, like John said, you don't want to have 2 losses in a row. Mm-hmm. And for A&M, it's just the mindset of, can you get over that hump? Because Notre Dame was the first hump. Can you win a big game on the road against a top 10 team? Okay, you did that. You have a bye week. Can you keep that momentum going? Or are you just going to let it all go to waste and continue being the A&M team that we all know and sometimes love? So given, let's just say Auburn were to win this game, what does that mean for your season? How do you see the rest of your season playing out?
Yeah, if Auburn wins this game, I think we can start having the discussion of, is this a potential playoff team? Because after this kind of stretch, Oklahoma on the road, A&M on the road, we have a bye week, and then Georgia at home. Our schedule gets relatively easier given we have more home games and our opponents aren't as hard. We get to play Kentucky at home. I think Missouri at home, although Missouri is a good and respectable team again this year. Vandy on the road, which I guess they're also a respectable team as well. But we do get Alabama at home this year, which is huge. But I do think this is the toughest stretch of our schedule right now that we're in, and then following it up with Georgia in 2 weeks. So I think if we win this game, there's a real conversation that can be had about the ceiling of this team being the cusp of the playoffs.
John, given what you know about the implications of this game for both of these teams, A&M coming off a bye, Auburn coming off a loss, all of these non-negotiables, do you think these, just the non-negotiable aspect of it, do you think this helps Auburn more or A&M?
I think a win definitely helps Auburn more just because of they're coming off the loss to Oklahoma. I think it just sets them up. They do have a bye, and then Georgia's going to come in there and lay the smack down when they retire. No, I'm sorry, Brandie. I'm just
Look, it's a Cam Newton retirement game. We can't lose with Cam Newton's retirement.
I had to throw that in there. But I think trajectory-wise, I think this is. It feels it's too early in the year to be talking about must wins, but it feels like a must win for Auburn. It's a really, 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 really need to win for Auburn versus Texas A&M. I mean, you beat Notre Dame. You've got a tough schedule ahead of you, but you've got games that you can overcome this loss if it were to be a loss. I feel like there are more opportunities than there will be potentially for Auburn if they were to lose the game.
And with that being said, I'm 100% confident and 100% nervous going into Saturday because this is a game that either turns the page or a game that we historically lose. So I feel like we covered all aspects of what this Saturday is going to look like, at least at 2:30 at Kyle Field. But if y'all don't have anything to add, John, I'm very interested to hear your take on Georgia versus Bama.
Oh boy, I thought we were about to pick Auburn versus Texas A&M. I was like gearing up for a pick.
I want to hear it because
I'll give you my pick because I'm in the middle. Like I won't ask you guys. I won't ask you guys to go out on a limb and make a pick.
Thank you.
I was really impressed. By Auburn at Oklahoma. There was a lot of stuff that went wrong for Auburn. I mean, 10 sacks, and you still have an opportunity to win that game versus an Oklahoma defense that's really, really good. I was really impressed with Texas A&M at Notre Dame. I think Texas A&M is going to win this game, and I think Brandie, close your ears. I think Texas A&M is going to win this game by maybe 2 touchdowns. Because I think Mike Elko, and here's why, hear me out.
I'm loving it so far.
After we talked all of this, the one thing I think is I go back to just Mike Elko he's just a little bit of a maniac. And I don't know that Hugh Freeze is. And what I mean by that is Mike Elko, I think Mike Elko probably feels every bit of losing games that you should win, and even some of those at home when he was, as a defensive coordinator under Jimbo Fisher. I think he just feels a lot of that from being on staff with Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M, and some of those games last year, like the Auburn game is a good example. And I think he's just crazy enough that I think he's going to have Texas A&M that energy. I think from him of the way the game went down last year at Auburn, feeling all that weight of it. And I don't think it's going to be anything really to do with Auburn. I think it's just going to be. I think Mike Elko. I just think his defensive mind is just going to have this Texas A&M team ready to play. The good news for Brandie is I have been pretty not good on my picks this year. So Brandie, like this might be a good thing for you. But that's my
Look, I think it's going to be 28-24 Texas A&M if I had to give a score. I think it's going to be a close game, but revenge from last year, I don't know. I'm interested to see what kind of meme we get out of this game. I feel like this game is like there's always something like when A&M played at Auburn and we had an interim head coach and Coach Cadillac, like that was pretty special. And then the year that Jimbo got fired when we played at A&M at College Station that year, he was like in the halfway in the field when our receiver was right there. And this game is always, for some reason, just like really fun and kind of a crazy moment or two usually happen. So I'm excited
I have
for
one
that.
in the background. That was the Michael Clemens special celebration in the end zone. But no, I do agree with John. Elko has a little bit of a crazy element of the way that he coaches football. I mean, we saw what he did to that chair against Notre Dame. Like,
the man's a maniac.
There's not going to be, at least on the defensive side of the ball, ever going to be a time where he's satisfied, I think, no matter how many points we win a game by. I think that helps a lot, and it's a culture shift we've seen from Jimbo. I think Jimbo maybe wanted to win at the beginning, but it just got to a point where it was just seemed like he was showing up because he had to. And we saw that reflected in a lot of our games. And I haven't seen Elko lose any of that fire. I know coming off of last year, he was ripping our defense apart, and that we are in no way, shape, or form close to the standard that he expects. So if I had to give a prediction, I think it'll be high scoring. I think it'll be A&M 34, Auburn 27. I think Auburn keeps it close. I don't see this going off the rails just because of our lack of identity on defense and Auburn's ability to make plays despite not having the best offense, and also just A&M still figuring out their own identity and learning how to win games that they're supposed to. So now, with that being said, you can hear a little bit of Georgia Bama, which I will be watching as soon as our game ends, win or lose.
Yeah, let's do it. Brandie is smart, y'all. Brandie picked Texas A&M because she knew Avery was going to pick Texas A&M. She heard me pick Texas A&M. You know, it's the trifecta, which means like go ahead and lay them on Auburn. I think it's going to be no. I
my emotions a little too.
No, that was good. Georgia Bama. Okay, listen. Here's the deal. Georgia has no shot. We're probably going 7-5. Alabama is still Bama. Bama's still Bama. Did y'all see what they did to Louisiana Monroe and Wisconsin? Yeah, there we go. Lounge knows 7-5 still on the table. Kirby Smart is 53-4 at Sanford Stadium as a head coach. 3 of those 4 losses were in year 1. Those 4 losses have come by a combined 8 points. But it doesn't matter because Bama's still Bama, and they're gonna come in and just roll over Georgia. Like this is just I'm kidding. There's a big sentiment in the Georgia fan base. You either think that we're about to, mule kick Alabama, or we're about to get our doors blown off. Like I don't think there's anybody that's like, oh, this is Georgia 1-9 versus Alabama our last 10. Kirby Smart, who I just told you has beaten everybody, is 1-6 versus Alabama. But this is the first time that Alabama has come to Athens to play in Sanford Stadium with Kirby Smart as the head coach. And I think that is much bigger than people give it credit for, because people feel like, well, Georgia played the SEC East, like you didn't have, whatever. Georgia has played 10 top 10 teams in Sanford Stadium in the last 5 years, played Tennessee when they were number 1 in the college football playoff rankings, and like 87% of the public money was on Tennessee. And Kirby Smart, beat them by 2 touchdowns. I think Sanford Stadium is a home field advantage, mostly because of the team that plays there, but also I do think that is going to play a big part in this game. I think the game being at night is awesome as well. Georgia doesn't give a lot of night games. If you look, I wish I had the stats in front of me. If you look at the list, Georgia, I think Georgia is we're close to last. Vandy might be last. But Georgia, believe it or not, Georgia is close to last in the SEC in number of night games in the last 15 years. Like, we just don't get night games. And part of that was because we trashed our campus after a night game versus South Carolina, and the former president of UGA was like, we're not playing any more night games because of all the stuff they had to do on Sunday to clean up the campus and put it back together. So that was fair. So I think we got a little bit of probation by the president of the university for a few years. But Georgia hasn't lost a night game in Sanford Stadium since 2009. And so, again, I think a home field advantage is going to be big. Georgia versus Tennessee, the secondary for Georgia scares the shit out of me. Like, the secondary, and it doesn't scare me because of what Tennessee did. It scares me because of what the secondary for Georgia did not do. Georgia was in position to make plays twice on a 70-something yard touchdown and a 56-yard touchdown. The defender was literally in between Brazel and the ball both times and could not make a play. And that is not a Kirby Smart defense. That concerns me. The second thing that concerns me with Alabama is we have this thing at Georgia that we call a Kirby Smart death march, which is in the third quarter when Kirby Smart thinks he has a game in hand, he'll have a drive in the third quarter. It's like a 10-minute drive where he'll run the ball like 10 times and he's been doing this for years. Versus Tennessee, the first possession of the second half was a 14-play, 75-yard touchdown drive from Georgia where we ran the ball 13 out of 14 times. Ran the ball 10 times in a row. Took 8 minutes off the clock. And I was like, that's it. There's the death march. Like, this one's over. And then Georgia should have lost the game. And that concerns me as well, because that's just not characteristic of a Kirby Smart team. So those are my takes from Georgia, what concerns me, what makes me nervous, and what, I think I'm excited about. Plus, Kalen DeBoer, have you guys heard? Like, can one of y'all talk about it? I mean, has Kalen DeBoer been good away from Tuscaloosa? I don't know. Like, feels like the guy hasn't done very well when he's not playing in Bryant-Denny Stadium.
No. That's what the streets are saying.
Yeah, you guys definitely have the coach advantage. I'll be interested to see how it's interesting because obviously we all saw that Alabama FSU game and we've seen Alabama since then, and it's still so hard to use that as kind of a judging mark for Alabama because Ty Simpson has actually been really good since that game, like incredibly efficient, but given they haven't played necessarily like the caliber of teams that anywhere near Georgia, in my opinion, since that game. So it'll be interesting to see how Ty Simpson does and how that offensive line does, because that offensive line is a big reason why they lost that Florida State game. And I'm curious, I don't know enough about Georgia's defensive line, but if it's anything like some of their more recent defensive lines, I assume it's still really freaking good. So, I think the trenches, they're going to be really interesting. And honestly, that's kind of where Alabama struggled on the defensive side of the ball too in that FSU game. So I'll be interested to see kind of how Alabama looks, specifically Ty Simpson and, Ryan Williams, because that offensive line, Ty Simpson, Ryan Williams, everybody, really kind of a lot of them on the defensive side of the ball, all looks like really just lackadaisical out there. And so I'm interested to see like how they do against another caliber opponent, since they haven't played one really since FSU.
Yeah, and I think I'm leaning Georgia, but my question coming into the year was obviously the quarterback situation with Gunnar Stockton, and then also receivers. What are the weapons he has to throw to? Given what I know about Georgia, which is, I know me and Brandie are both rooting for teams that have been an underdog in many, many situations. Georgia is typically not the underdog in most of the games that they face. With that being said, I feel like this is a game where a lot of people are leaning Bama and do see Georgia having the possibility of giving up this game. And I feel like every game that Kirby Smart has been the underdog in, he shows up and he performs. Like the last one I could think of is Texas last year, and y'all just wiped the floor with Texas. So that's obviously an intangible, but again, Brandie started it off by saying the coaching advantage is Georgia, and I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll say this. I think Kirby Smart and Georgia play significantly better when whether manufactured or actually true being underdogs. Kirby Smart is one of the best at weaving those storylines in, right, and motivating his team. And I know Bama fans, I know people, people say, well, Vegas is favoring Georgia. Dude, please. Alabama, Kirby Smart is 1-6 versus Alabama. Georgia has lost 9 of their last 10 versus Alabama. That line was, I think it opened at like 6.5 or something. It's all the way down to like 2.5. And so people can say whatever they want to say about Vegas and Georgia's favored and they're not the underdog. Georgia is the underdog in this game. And I'm not, for me, I'm not, I am a Georgia fan, and I do buy into some of the, nobody believed us. Like, I do buy into a little bit of that sometimes. But as someone who has sat through five of those 6 losses to Alabama, all of them except for the COVID year, and I did see the win in the national championship, I can tell you, I don't. Kirby Smart doesn't care what Vegas says. Georgia is not the favorite in that building and in the mindset of the Georgia football team and Georgia fans, and I think that's a huge advantage for Georgia in this game. And and I'll also say, like, Alabama. I mean, yes, Ty Simpson has been great. Alabama has looked really good since that Florida State game, but Wisconsin was not that good. ULM, not that good. Alabama is averaging 123 yards a game rushing, and you're not going to beat Georgia. They rush for I don't know, I need to pull it up, but they rush for 87 yards, I think, versus Florida State, and then like 90 something versus Wisconsin. Like, you're not going to beat Georgia being one-dimensional. Kirby Smart is not going to let you come into Sanford Stadium and throw the ball 40 times and beat him. It's just not going to happen. So, to Brandie's point, it is going to come down to the trenches. It's going to come down to, can Georgia's defensive front get pressure on Ty Simpson when he has to throw the ball? And can they, stifle the run and make Alabama be one-dimensional? Because that's what Georgia has done. It's what they did to Tennessee when Tennessee came in there in 2022. Arkansas was number 8, I think, when they came in 2021, did the same thing. It's just like, hey, Kirby Smart is going to stop the run, period. Alabama hasn't been good running the ball. I know they get Jam Miller back. I know there's, a lot of that. But if Alabama can't run the ball, I think Georgia, I think it's going to be a long night for Alabama. And you saw that versus Tennessee last week. I think the difference, again, versus Tennessee, the difference for Georgia was Tennessee, they were able to run the ball. So they had, it wasn't like super effective, but they had, 125 yards rushing. But even then, Georgia had those 2 plays, those 2 long touchdowns that Tennessee had. Georgia was in position to make the play and just didn't make the play. And I think people, kind of overlooked that a little bit of, like, you look at the score, it went to overtime, Tennessee missed a field goal, they should have won, all those things. But also I'm like, yeah, but they had 2 touchdowns that really, any other Georgia defense, those would not have been touchdowns. And so that's my question coming into this game is the Georgia defense that is going to try to make Alabama one-dimensional. Can they do it? And when they do, can those corners make plays versus Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard and those guys? The other thing I'll say too is people look back at last year, and I'm like, I've had Alabama fans in my mentions all week. Yeah, I've had Alabama fans in my mentions all week. Kalen DeBoer beat the brakes off of Kirby. But I'm like, dude, Kalen DeBoer was up 30-7 and had to hold on and hope Carson Beck threw an interception on the goal line at the end of the game, in a game where Georgia had 4 turnovers, where it had 4 or 5 maybe dropped passes, one that would have been a touchdown. I mean, Georgia played terrible in that game, and still Kirby Smart's defensive adjustments. You had that Ryan Williams play where Julian Humphrey got turned around and it was just a home run ball. And Ryan Williams is incredible. I mean, shout out to him. That was an incredible play. Like, took advantage of a guy that was turned around. But when you look at that game, that second half, I'm like, yeah, Alabama scored 11 points. And and of the 11 points, one of them was literally a home run ball where a defender got turned around. So I think like that's the thing that people are overlooking a little bit, is those second half adjustments that Kirby Smart made that literally shut down that Alabama offense, except for, a few plays. I think that's sticking in Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann's mind coming into this game. So that's something I'll say, like they're gonna make Ty Simpson beat them by throwing the ball 40 times. I mean, that's what they're going to do, and we'll see if Alabama is able to do it.
And I think that's the most exciting part for me, just watching as someone who doesn't root for either team, as this has made itself a rivalry game. I mean, any team you play in the SEC, it's already technically a rival, but just these are the teams you see in the SEC championship 9 out of the last 10, or some crazy number like that. So as much as you want to look on paper and on stats and whatever it is, like this game could go either way, up, down, left, right. So that's why I think what Vegas says is kind of just thrown out the window, because it's really anyone's game. As bad as Alabama looked to start the year, maybe that was just them figuring out their kinks, and then they went out the rest of the year. Maybe they got it out of the way early, because I think most people don't expect, especially with the SEC, any team to go undefeated. I think it's way too close in contention with all the teams in Tier 1 and Tier 2. So I'm excited to watch and not be stressed out. I may be depressed, but I won't be stressed.
Brandie, are you going to be stressed?
Look, I just hope both teams have no fun at all. I'm like, why does Auburn's 2 biggest rivals have to be dominating college football for basically my whole life at this point? Combining both teams,
that was by the way, that was me in the 90s, because it was Georgia had Tennessee and Florida, and it was like, I think Georgia went a combined in the 90s. I think Georgia went a combined 1-9 versus Tennessee and Florida. And it was the same thing. It was like, yep. Can't trust the coach for who gets.
Talking about DeBoer.
Well, he's back. He's back.
Yeah.
He ditched the polo.
Yeah.
He last year he got bullied into wearing the polo. Then he ditched it, and then this year he started the year wearing the polo, and now he's ditched it. And so I think you're onto something, Lounge. I think it really matters what Kalen DeBoer is wearing when he shows up.
Is the hoodie back? Is that what he's sticking with?
Yeah, the hoodie's been back the last 2 games. So if he shows up wearing a polo, just go ahead and live bet whatever. Get you an alt line for Georgia, minus 15 or something. But because we're gonna blow him out. But if he shows up wearing the hoodie, that's
might be close game, huh?
Well, while I have you both here, some fans of alternate SEC teams, I guess we just got to see the permanent rivals and then also our schedule over the next 4 years. So we can talk about that a little bit. Tell me your thoughts, both for your team and the SEC as a whole, if you actually think it was fair, if it's going to be balanced, or if you're still a little iffy on SEC scheduling, because we know how questionable they've been in years past.
I'm not looking forward to next season for Auburn for the schedule that came out. I mean, when our two of the 3 permanent rivals are our rivals, which are Alabama and Georgia. That's never going to be fun. But I'm very happy because the third team that we got was Vanderbilt, and I live in Nashville. So getting to see Auburn come to Nashville every other year is really exciting. On top of that, Auburn just has a pretty massive presence of alumni here in Nashville that go to the games and stuff. So I'm happy about that. I do think like across the board, it's pretty balanced as it could be while still protecting rivalries. So yeah, I think it's pretty balanced. But next year, Auburn's schedule is a schedule from hell. Basically, it's pretty bad. So I'm not excited about that. 2027, a lot better, but 2026 football season is not going to be kind to my
Avery,
team.
what are your thoughts on both Texas A&M's permanent opponents and like the overall?
2 of the 3 were as expected, and me and Brandie are on the same boat. Texas and LSU are our rivals, and it's recently not been fun rivals to have. It's especially not fun when Texas comes into the SEC and doesn't even let you score a point on offense. That's never fun. So given that was expected. So yes, tough schedule, especially we play LSU away this year, and then we play them again away next year, which is interesting. But you got to roll with the punches. Our third permanent rival is Missouri, which Elko even said was very random and doesn't know where that comes from. And I think a lot of us were in the same boat. I would have expected Arkansas, South Carolina, or Mississippi State before Missouri. But I think Missouri is one of those teams where they don't have a rival aside from maybe Arkansas. So it's kind of, you got to stick them where you can. And we joined the SEC at the same time as Missouri. So I guess maybe that was their logic with that.
Yeah.
I don't really know, but we had a lot of fun with Missouri coming into the SEC. They were really good. I think they won the East a few times in the early 2010s. So it's not an opponent to overlook.
Not the SEC
But
championship, though.
Auburn beat them. Auburn beat them. Yeah.
I'm saying that because they played
Yeah,
Auburn.
Make that clear. Have that on the record.
Yeah.
I think Missouri was probably a regional decision if I had to guess for Texas A&M, but I bet it's probably hard for determining who Missouri and South Carolina would play because both of their main rivals are not in the SEC. So Missouri's main rival is Kansas and South Carolina's is Clemson. So when that's like their main rivals, I think that those teams, I bet were harder for them to make decisions
definitely not as
on.
much to work with there.
Yeah, but I mean, I know they've been in the SEC together. But I mean, Mizzou and Texas A&M, they've played 17 or 18 times. Ole Miss and Oklahoma 2 times in history they've played, and now they're a permanent opponent for the next 4 years. That one is the one to me that felt like, okay, we don't have anywhere to put. We don't have anywhere a third team that makes sense, or maybe it's for parity. Maybe there's a lot of things that went into it. From at least what the SEC says. My thing is, I'm fine with the permanent opponents. I think they did the best they could with the challenge they had. I like that you're going to rotate through every team in the SEC every 2 years. I think that's awesome because, again, Georgia finally gets to come to Kyle Field in 2027. 15 years after Texas A&M joined the conference, we finally get to come see that stadium. Yeah, it's crazy. But I still have to ask, like, what does Alabama have on Greg Sankey? Because Texas joined the SEC in year 1 of Texas in the SEC. Georgia has to go to Texas, right? Georgia has to go to Alabama. I get it, whatever. Texas is going to play Alabama for the first time as SEC conference opponents, and that game is in Tuscaloosa. And the last time Texas and Alabama played in 2023, that game was in Tuscaloosa. And I know Texas wasn't in the conference, but this is a league that made Georgia in 2023 cancel a game with Oklahoma because Oklahoma was joining the SEC and they wanted to, they wanted to protect. I guess Georgia had a home and home scheduled with Oklahoma, and they didn't want that affecting the first year SEC schedule or whatever. Made Georgia cancel a game with Oklahoma. Made Georgia go to Texas their first year in the league. And Alabama finally plays Texas 4 years into them being in the conference, and they get to have that game in Tuscaloosa. Also, Georgia has had to play the last 2 years, Texas and Alabama in the same year. Texas has to play Georgia and Alabama in the same year. Alabama does not have to play Texas and Georgia in the same year. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? So that's my rant on the schedule. That's my one.
I love
my
it,
one
John.
beef is like,
I
are you
love that
kidding me?
rant.
Wait, you're gonna make Texas? I get it, but like if people look and people say, well, the teams right now, that, and I know Texas. I know Texas is down, and I love it. But Texas is down, and Arch Manning still trying to figure it out. But if you think like, okay, well, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, those are the three that people always want to put at the top of the conference. But you're going to make Georgia play Texas and Alabama in the same year. You're going to make Texas play Alabama and Georgia in the same year. But you're not going to make Alabama play Texas and Georgia in the same year. Come on. What world are we living in? So that is my rant and my beef with the schedule. Everything else.
We needed something to be fired up about, and you did the job.
Dude.
I will say I'm excited that Auburn gets to play Florida next year because I don't know if people know this, but that kind of is a little bit of a rivalry like back
Jefferson
in the day.
Pilot Sports with Florida and Auburn on a
It used to be such a fun rivalry. Like I still remember, I think it was 2004. I was a kid. I was so young, but there's so many parts of that rivalry. So I'm actually really excited about that. And since conference realignment happened, we haven't played LSU in a couple years. So we get them next year. The only problem is like we're playing Florida and LSU next year at home. And then we also have to go on the road next year to at Alabama, at Georgia, at Ole Miss, at Tennessee, and at Mississippi State too, but that's not really compared. Sorry,
easier.
Not as tough. Not as tough as going on the road against the other four, but like that's a gauntlet of a schedule. And then for the teams at home, it's like, okay, out of our four, LSU and Florida are two of the four at home. So Auburn has like a really, really hard schedule next year. But I'm excited for 2027 because we go on the road to Texas and I don't think we've ever played them. Yeah, we haven't played them since they've joined the SEC. So I'm excited about that. Wow. But I'm just not excited about the year before because I don't see how we get out of that season without 5 losses.
Austin is a fantastic city. I love Austin. It is not a college town. Don't let any Texas fan try to be saying like, oh, the best college town. It is not a college town. It does not compare. When you think of college towns, it does not compare to Auburn. It does not compare to College Station. It does not compare to Athens. It does not compare to Oxford. It is not a college town. But if you want a road trip for a game, it's a pretty good place to take a road trip. So, so I will say that.
I still need to make it College Station though too. My dad and a lot of his friends go there like for a guys trip every other year when we played there, and they say it's their favorite away place to go visit. And they've been to Athens, Tuscaloosa, Gainesville, like all these different places, and they still say College Station. Like the people there are so nice, and just the environment and the stadium and all of that. Outside of Death Valley, I think Death Valley, LSU is probably. I've been to LSU before, and I don't know if anything will ever top a night game in Death Valley.
Well, I was with you, Brandie, when I was about to go in on you when you said they've been to Athens and College Station and stuff until you said, and they always talk about how nice the people are. Okay, I get it. I get why they wouldn't like Athens. They're all
yeah.
That's one difference with LSU is you're not gonna leave LSU talking about how nice the people were that you met.
Man, I don't know. I went to the Auburn LSU game in 2019, and I think we were probably the team that played LSU the closest that year that they won the national championship with Joe Burrow. We had Derek Brown on our team, and just an incredible defensive line, and we played them so close and came close to winning that game. We didn't, but walking into the stadium at Death Valley, I got offered like all this food, and I'm like decked out in Auburn gear. Like everybody going into the stadium and before the game were really nice, inside the stadium and leaving, maybe not as nice, but I actually had like a really great experience in Baton Rouge. I don't know why, but I loved going down there. But I actually haven't made the trip to Athens yet. I have not heard great things though about the people there when Auburn's in town. But that's a very heated rivalry, so I get it.
I will say this. And I'm being legitimately honest. I think Auburn is one of the few rivals that Georgia has. Florida would be one, Tennessee would be the other, where it does feel like it's a hard time for a visitor to come to Athens for that game. I was there in 2005 when Auburn kicked a field goal at the end of the game and won. That was the year Georgia actually played for an SEC championship. But Auburn won the game at the buzzer, went down the field, kicked a field goal, won the game. A game that Georgia should have won. Georgia was ranked higher, like the whole, favored the whole thing in Sanford Stadium. After that game was the most toxic I've ever seen, I think, two fan bases ever be. There was a big brawl. There's a big brawl right outside the gate when people were leaving. And it was like there was this guy standing. I vividly remember it. He's standing like on, basically like standing on top of the gate, yelling, "You still ain't going to Atlanta. You still ain't going to Auburn fans as they were leaving." Like it was just wild. It was wild.
Yeah. Look, I wouldn't dare step foot in Athens when Auburn goes on the road there until we're actually better at football. So I'm not about to go. I'm not about to go watch Auburn get blown out like they have.
That's where I was going to go. That's where I was going to go. I think it has gotten better now that Auburn hasn't been as good. Like I think, to your point about Death Valley, and I think Avery, those games at LSU and Texas A&M have played there. I think it's like if your team, like in 2019, Auburn played LSU close, I think that makes people a little nicer. Like when you're, when they win and it was a close game and they were clearly like a better team, they tend to be a little bit nicer. But I will say, like, Baton Rouge has not been nice to Georgia fans. But nothing will ever top Knoxville. And I have some really nice people that I know in Knoxville, people that I've tailgated with up there, really nice Tennessee fans. But boy, the majority of Tennessee fans, when Georgia goes up there, it is like, hide your kids, hide your wife. Like it's, they come down from those hills full of moonshine and ready to say whatever they want to say. It's pretty tough.
Yeah, I'm more excited to make road trips because A&M has a lack of history in the SEC as a whole. I know Georgia, especially, we played y'all one time, so I don't expect to get barked at a whole bunch when I go down to Athens, but who knows with that game. So there's still a lot of places I want to go. I've been to Auburn twice. I went to Auburn last year, unfortunately, and I went to Auburn 2 years before that, also unfortunately. But I loved it. I loved Auburn. I think I've said this before. If I didn't go to A&M, that's probably where I would have ended up. I think we're two very similar schools in terms of tradition and just
as Cal colleges to stay together.
Lounge. I was about to say, get lounging on. You're talking Cal colleges now.
Shout out to Ag schools.
I haven't heard more about their cowbells since this week. I think ever.
Mississippi State. It is a fun. Starkville is a fun place to go, especially for a baseball game. The Dudu Noble is literally the best. I know. People say what they want about Arkansas and LSU, and Dudu Noble Field is the best college baseball stadium I've ever been to. But they will tell you that in the left field lounge, where the left field lounge is, back in the 70s, that used to be a cow pasture. So it's literally like when people talk about like Cal College, it's like, no, that literally like where people used to pull their car up into the cow pasture and tailgate in left field with the cows. So it is I know there's ag schools, but I think Mississippi State is legitimately a legitimate Cal college for sure.
I would say it's a pretty fair slate across the next 4 years. And if nothing else, we get to play everybody. So even if it does end up a little skewed, it'll figure itself out. in 2029, and then we can reevaluate. But given that SEC slate, this is how I end my segment. It's the fire pit. So I'm wondering if y'all have any hot takes for the rest of the college football season. It can be about your team. It can be about the SEC. It can be about a team completely unaffiliated with any of us, out of conference, out of state.
Texas is not going to make the college football playoff, is my hot take.
It's my round of applause.
Texas,
You get a standing ovation.
and I don't say stuff like that lightly. Texas is not going to make the college football playoff. I think, Texas. There is a lot of people, talk about Arch Manning and his challenges. There's a lot of challenges with Texas right now, and I think that you go back and watch that UTEP game. Oof, I mean, people are they're Arch Manning standing over that guy from Sam Houston State and the Arch aura, and like he finally like figured it out and let off steam and whatever. No, that was clearly watching some of that stuff. I'm like, all right, yeah, these guys are legitimately in a pretty bad place, like mentally. Like, Texas is not gonna make the college football playoff.
Yeah, I got some flack from my Arch commentary, so I'm trying to let other people do the talking for me. So I appreciate that.
Anybody? Okay, I know we're running long, and I'm sorry. I've been long-winded tonight. I apologize. I came in hot, but are you kidding me? Did y'all see the freaking circus around Arch Manning at SEC Media Days? Did you hear Paul Feinbaum crowning this guy as like, the most talented player since Peyton Manning? I mean, come on. You got to stop. Anybody getting flack for their Arch Manning comments? Texas, the college football media, y'all set all of this up, and I understand, understand he's a first-year starter. Understand he's, kid. It is what it is, right? Like players got to figure it out. First-year starting quarterbacks have to figure it out. But you can't anoint the kid, and then when people come out and say, "Yeah, you see what's going on with this kid," and then you get mad at the people saying, like, "You see what's going on with this kid." I'm sorry. Like, maybe some of the issues could be you anointed him and put all that spotlight and all that pressure and all of that stuff. People owe Jordan Rodgers an apology. Jordan Rodgers, one of the few guys in the national college football media who was like, I don't think Arch is going to be that good. Like, he was like, I just don't think he is. And he's not. Like, I think Texas is going to lose 3, maybe 4 games the rest of this year and not make the college football playoff.
Yeah, fault the kid for what the media does. I mean, he has no say in that.
No.
I just have an issue. Like, it's great. Get your confidence back against Sam Houston. That's fine. Do what you need to do. Don't treat him like he's a freshman. That's the issue. He's not a freshman. He's a junior. He's been in their system a while. Don't compare him to Eli and Peyton, who had and use their stats from when they were freshmen. That's apples and oranges. Who's to say he's not going to be a great quarterback? I don't know. He hasn't been. That's where we're at right now. I could easily see Texas going 9-3. What the 3 are going to be. I think Texas loses at Georgia, and I see them dropping a random. Like, I predicted they would lose to Florida. Now that's a little bit shaky, but 9-3 is not off the table. 8-4 is pushing it, but I don't know.
I think my hot take, I have 2 actually I want to give. One of them is going to be, I think, Ahmad Hardy, for the running back from Missouri. I think he is going to be in New York for the Heisman ceremony. Not going to say he's going to win it, but to me, I think he's the best offensive player in college football right now. I think this is probably one of the worst Heisman years in terms of there's not a clear front runner. The front runners that are out there right now are really not like wooing anybody per se. And I thought he was really, really impressive and has been all year. And just people aren't talking about him. He's not even like top 20 right now if you look at Heisman odds. But I think he's good enough to get to New York. So that's my first hot take. And then my second one, I don't know if this is a hot take because they're probably one of the best teams right now in college football, but I think Miami is going to make the national championship game. So I think they have one of the best offensive lines in the country paired with one of the best defensive players in the country. And sorry, John, but your guy Carson Beck actually looks pretty decent at Miami this year, which has been surprising. A little shaky this past weekend against Florida, but I've been pretty impressed with him. I kind of was not expecting that.
A little
I'll be
shaky.
honest.
Just wait, it's gonna get shakier. I like Carson Beck. I like Carson Beck a lot. I say this. I will say this because Carson Beck has he has made enough money to have bought a Lamborghini and a Mercedes, and both of them got stolen. So.
Not very
Yeah,
smart.
no. I was gonna say he is one of the least mentally tough quarterbacks I have ever seen. Especially for starting for Georgia, starting big time college football, and Miami. As long as that defense keeps carrying him, as long as those receivers keep bailing him out, as long as they keep winning, gonna be fine. End up in a situation where he throws a couple picks and they lose, it could be off the rails pretty quick.
Yeah.
Miami is the perfect case study compared to Clemson of how important the transfer portal is in this modern day era. I know Miami struggled in their secondary last year and they got some guys, and that has been a huge high point for them this year. So I don't know what's happening up at South Carolina with Dabo Swinney, but I'm assuming they're just going to move on to next year. And also to your first point, I feel like the Heisman has done a really bad job at just making it a quarterback award every year. And I feel like we've seen a lot of other skill players kind of be swept under the rug. So I would love to see some running backs or wide receiver. Like I think Mario Craver could be in contention. Again, biased, but like there are a lot of skill players outside of the quarterback.
Ruben Bain, like three games in, like he deserves to be.
Which we've got
New York as of right now, and that's on the defensive side of the ball. But people aren't. I don't really think people are talking about it all that much. I've seen like maybe like one or two national guys talking about him, but he's clearly the best player in the country right now. But I agree with you. Like it's absolutely been a quarterback award. It feels like the last couple of years. And that's looking rough this year. If a quarterback wins it this year, like just throw the award away.
I got to start from scratch.
So throw the award away. It's lost its shine if a quarterback wins this year.
Well, I think those are the more hot takes I've seen across the 4 weeks that I've been doing this. So thank y'all for going out on a limb a little bit. I think people get a little scared. But I'm like, you got nothing to lose. Like, what are people going to do? Clip your video? No, they're not. And even if they do, you got nothing to lose. I say just say whatever you want and deal with the consequences later. But
look, if Ahmad Hardy ends up in New York, I'm putting this out on TikTok and putting an Ahmad Hardy edit with it.
Yeah, people can use that. And I'm hoping because I think he almost has double the yardage of anyone, whoever's second, third, whatever, whoever's behind him. So I'm hoping to see this clip in a couple edits come December. But with that being said, thank you all so much. I know we went over time a little bit, but this was very fun, and I'm glad to have a little bit of parody because I always have Aggies on, and so it's a little bit of me being stuck in my own bubble. So I appreciate having people who help me see outside of.
Brandie picked the Aggies to win, so she's basically an Aggie. She's gonna show up. She's gonna be in some overalls with Brandie across. It's gonna be great.
I can make you some for your trip down to College Station.
I know. I need to make a trip down there.
Time to get that yell leader training. It's gonna be great, Brandie.
But
Look, that's more cultish than Auburn, okay? People call us a cult all the time. We're not the cultiest of the cults in the SEC anymore.
Avery is like, on that note, it is time. We have gone overtime. It's time to end the show.
I can't even deny it. I just have to end it at that. That's going to be our finale. I thank you guys so much for joining me. I am praying for all of us come Saturday. It's going to be a big one. No matter what the results of our games are, it's a very fun slate. Praying for everyone who will be at a wedding this weekend. And come Sunday, we'll see how things shake out. But thank you guys so much. You can find both of them on Twitter for sure. They've linked their handles, so go give them a follow. They're a lot of fun, and you will be missing out on a lot if you don't do that. Give us a like, give us a subscribe so you can pray for my fellow fans of college football who are always, there's always something. There's always a punch ready to be thrown. So with that being said, we are going to wrap up here. Thank you guys. I will see y'all both come Saturday, and wishing all of us the best of luck, even though it's a little counterproductive.